After being hit by a truck and dying, a jobless Japanese man reincarnates into a fantasy-like world as Rudeus, son of the swordsman Paul Greyrat and his wife, the healer Zenith. Rudeus rapidly learns to read and eventually begins practicing magic while keeping his memories of his old life. Rudeus's parents employed the adventurer Roxy Miguria as his magic teacher after noticing his talent. Roxy has reservations about tutoring him because of his young age, but after witnessing his unusual ability to use magic instantaneously, she sees his promise. Rudeus promises to work hard to rehabilitate himself and make the best of the second chance he was given to live a happy and fulfilling life, while the Greyrat family throws a welcoming party for Roxy. Rudeus reminisces on his prior life, when he was kicked out of his house and killed by a truck while trying to save some teenagers. He spends the following few months with Roxy, learning magic until his 5-year-old birthday celebration, when Roxy proclaims that she has nothing else to teach him and holds his graduation exam. Rudeus leaves his house for the first time the next day, escorted by Roxy. He is troubled by his prior trauma when he was violently tormented by his peers in school, but he overcomes it when he sees how Roxy has merged in well with the villagers, despite the prejudice she is subjected to because of her demon heritage. Rudeus succeeds in conjuring a tremendous thunderstorm during the exam, and Roxy declares that he has passed. Roxy goes on her quest, and Rudeus expresses his gratitude to her for everything she's done for him. Rudeus starts playing outside by himself after losing his anxiety of leaving his house thanks to Roxy, until he saves a half-elf child, who he guesses is a boy named Sylph, from a group of bullies. Sylph befriends Rudeus and begins to study magic from him, and it is discovered that Sylph is also capable of doing magic without the use of incantations. The Greyrat family is ecstatic to find that Zenith is pregnant once more, but their joy is short-lived, when their maid Lilia tells that she too is pregnant following an affair with Paul. To avoid Zenith's anger, Rudeus persuades his mother to forgive her by having Paul assume full responsibility for the incident, earning him Lilia's appreciation and loyalty. Rudeus considers leaving to study at the Ronoa Magic Academy, after getting a letter from Roxy encouraging him to do so, but Sylphiette does not want him to leave her side, so he chooses to hunt for a job to help her pay for her tuition as well. As Ghislaine and Rudeus depart the village, he receives a letter from Paul in which he explains that he has acquired a teaching job to help him and Sylphiette pay for their studies. For the following 5 years, Paul prevents him from returning home or seeing Sylphiette. Rudeus meets his boss, Philip Boreas Greyrat, who is also the mayor and his father's cousin in the city of Roa, and is tasked with teaching Philip's daughter, Eris, though she becomes hostile to him. Rudeus knows Eris would not listen to him, so he devises a scheme to gain her trust by simulating their kidnapping with her father's permission. Rudeus and Eris are apprehended, and after persuading her to collaborate, he uses his powers to help her escape. Back in Roa, Rudeus learns that one of Philip's slaves is collaborating with their kidnappers, and that they used his idea to stage an actual kidnapping. To defend Eris, Rudeus fights the kidnappers until Ghislaine arrives, killing the crooks and arresting the servant. Eris accepts Rudeus as her tutor and invites him to live with her. Philip thanks Rudeus for defending Eris, and cautions him not to tell anybody about his ties to the Greyrat family, or he will be hunted down again. While Ghislaine begins teaching Eris and Rudeus swordmanship, Rudeus teaches them magic, literacy, and math. However, Eris frequently skips school due to boredom, so Rudeus decides to reward her with 1 day off per week. Eris tries to purchase Rudeus an expensive book while out on a walk in the city, but he refuses, arguing that she cannot give gifts to people without her own money, and suggesting that her father give her an allowance. Eris gives Rudeus a vial he was previously interested in with her allowance, which puts him in a tight spot because he's afraid of admitting to her and Ghislaine that it is in fact an aphrodisiac. With Eris's 10th birthday approaching, Rudeus allows her dancing teacher to take over a portion of his teaching schedule in order to help her improve, while he uses his newfound spare time to learn other languages. Despite this, Eris's dance is barely improving, and she's considering giving up, but Rudeus urges her to keep going and begins assisting with her lessons. While Rudeus improves his foreign language skills with the help of Ghislaine and Roxy, Eris does not. On the day after the party, she fails to dance with another noble. After urging Eris to incorporate some of her combat talents into her routines, Rudeus steps in and effectively dances with her. Following the festivities, Rudeus runs across Eris's grandfather, Soros, who notices a weird ball of light in the sky and worries it's an awful sign. 2 years later, Eris and her family throws Rudeus a birthday party, which he is first dissatisfied with because his own family was unable to attend owing to an upsurge in monster activity across the country. Rudeus is given a high-quality magic staff, and Philip announces his desire for Rudeus to marry Eris and succeed him, but Rudeus declines. An enormous amount of cloud mana develops in the sky a few days later, and the legendary hero Paragus Dola dispatches his assistant Arumanfi to investigate. Arumanfi assaults Rudeus, who was exercising with his new staff alongside Eris and Ghislaine, suspecting him of being responsible for the cloud's emergence. But Ghislaine defends him and reveals his innocence when a great flash of light envelops them. Rudeus has a brief contact with an elusive figure known as the Human God, who urges him to rely on and support the guy who saved him in his nightmares. He then awakens in his current form, where he discovers that he and Eris are lost in the demon continent and have been saved by Rudeus Superdia, a member of the dangerous Supard race, who becomes their friend and offers to accompany them home. During their stay, Rudeus learns from Rudeus that his tribe's bad reputation stems from the cursed spears they receive from the demon lord Laplace, which has turned them into mindless murderers, and that the spear he holds belonged to his son, whose death at his hands restored his senses. Rudeus is moved by Rudeus' ambition to clear his race's name, and the three set off from the settlement on their trek across the demon continent. In the city of Rikarisu, Rudeus, Eris, and Rudeus come. Rudeus paints Rudeus' hair and makes him appear to be a Midgardia tribe member in order for him to enter the city without incident. The three of them form the Dead End Adventure Group, but their inexperience prevents them from taking assignments that will pay well enough for them to make ends meet. Rudeus joins a quest to find a lost pet at the recommendation of the Human God, which leads them to another gang of adventurers who kidnap pets in order to collect the bounty for finding them. Rudeus tries to interrogate the kidnappers after they're defeated, but he's injured by one of them, prompting Rudeus to kill him instantaneously. Rudeus is chastised by Rudeus, who forbids him from killing again. Rudeus uses the kidnappers' greater rank to force them to take higher-ranking jobs for their own party, improving their reputation. All of Paul's family members are missing after the Mana Surge in Fitoa, except for Norn, and he invites his contacts to form search parties to find them. Meanwhile, Rudeus and his companions are searching for a mystery monster in the middle of a forest in order to complete a quest. They come upon two more groups who are also on the lookout for the monster. One of the groups is ambushed by monsters, but Rudeus chooses to wait, resulting in the death of one of the adventurers. The monster attacks and kills the other party before Rudeus and his companions can slay it. Rudeus is approached by another adventurer in Rikarisu, who finds his plan to tackle higher-ranking tasks and tries to blackmail him. Rudeus ditches his disguise, showing himself as a Supard, and then threatens to kill the adventurer if he reveals their secret. Moved by Rudeus' vow to protect Eris, Rudeus reconciles with Rudeus after leaving the city. Rudeus continues to journey with Eris and Rudeus all the way to a seaside city in the Demon Continent's edge, unaware that Roxy, joined by two of Paul's former companions, is also arriving on the continent to hunt for him. Rudeus and his party finally arrive at a coastal city with a port, while Roxy and her party arrive at the same time by boat. But both parties fail to encounter each other. Unfortunately for Rudeus and Eris, Rudeus' boat fee to travel the ocean is too high for them to pay because he is a Supard. While searching for a solution, Rudeus is visited by Human God, who orders him to purchase food in a specified location, where he encounters and feeds a starving vagabond. Rudeus uses his demon eye to save a man from harm, and the vagabond exposes herself to be the reincarnated demon emperor Kishirika Kishirisu, who rewards him with a demon eye that allows him to see a few seconds into the future. Rudeus chooses to sell his staff to raise money for Rudeus' ticket and become accustomed to his new ability, but Rudeus himself discourages him, pointing out that it will harm Eris' feelings. The man Rudeus rescued then appears, introducing himself as Gallus Cleaner. Roxy and her friends, Talhand and Ella Lanais, set out to search the city for any signs of Paul's missing family, especially Rudeus. Unfortunately, because Rudeus travels under a false name, Roxy is unaware that he is in the same city. Roxy comes upon Eris and Rudeus sparring while she explores the city, but she escapes when she realizes that they are both Supards. Roxy and her companions decide to travel to the next village after failing to uncover any information. Meanwhile, Gallus assists Rudeus and his company in smuggling Rudeus onto the ship in exchange for Rudeus liberating certain things for him in Zant port, allowing Rudeus and his group to leave the city via sea. When Rudeus arrives in Zant, he goes straight to the smuggler's lair, where he learns that he is intended to free beast youngsters kept captive by the smugglers. Rudeus stays behind to liberate a magical dog while Reincarnated kills all the smugglers and brings the youngsters to safety. He is however ambushed and caught by a couple of beastmen who are also attempting to save the children and their sacred beast. They decide to bring Rudeus to their town for questioning, mistaking him for one of the smugglers. Rudeus is imprisoned in Doldia village, where he is eventually joined by another human prisoner, Grease, a rogue. The community is besieged by smugglers wanting to capture beast children a few days later, and both Rudeus and Grease break out and assist the locals, except for Gallus, who reveals himself to be the head of the smuggling ring who fooled him in order to use Reincarnated as a distraction to attack the village's warriors away. They vanquish all the adversaries together. Realizing that Gladys is too powerful for him to handle alone, Rudeus considers allowing him to flee until the sacred beast arrives to assist him, and the two of them, along with Grease, fight him together. The villagers apologize for unfairly blaming Rudeus and express gratitude for his assistance. Eris's grandfather is blamed for the city's plight following the mana surge, stripped of his position and beheaded in front of the king. Rudeus and his companions are compelled to stay in Doldia village for the next 3 months as the rainy season begins. Eris befriends some of the beast children during this time, notably Tana, Guy's daughter of the village's best warrior. When Ghislaine's name is introduced, however, Geis reacts negatively, revealing that Ghislaine is his younger sister who fled the community many years ago, and is now regarded as a traitor for refusing to become a village guardian. Tana becomes interested in learning sword fighting as a result of this, and Eris joyfully agrees to be her tutor. Rudeus and his companions are ready to go after the rain stops 3 months later. Tana is enraged that Eris is leaving and has a fight with her over it. Guys persuades her to apologize by disclosing that Ghislaine was a rebellious child, and the community permitted her to be kidnapped by an adventurer in order to get rid of her. He now regrets not attempting to understand Ghislaine before she left. Rudeus and his companions then set out for the Holy Land of Milis, where Geese joins them. Militian, Mil's capital city, is reached by the party. Rudeus thinks that everyone should take the day off while Geese leaves the group. Rudeus, on the other hand, discovers what appears to be a kidnapping and pursues the kidnappers. When he confronts the kidnappers, he is taken aback to learn that Paul is their leader. Paul reveals that their home village was caught in the teleportation calamity, and he and his group have been searching all over for the missing villagers and their families for the past 1.5 years. Paul asks Rudeus why he never tried to write a message home or even think about the other victims of the calamity when Rudeus tells him about his journey from the demon continent, and Rudeus has no explanation. Both of them get into a brawl, which Norn only manages to break up with his intervention. Rudeus runs after seeing Paul's party despise him, which brings up memories of being ostracized in a previous existence. When Eris notices Rudeus is in a bad mood, she does her hardest to cheer him up, which he appreciates. Paul is visited by Grease, who reveals himself to be a member of Paul's party, and pushes him to make apologies with Rudeus, telling him that Rudeus is still a child. Paul has nightmares about what might have happened to Rudeus and decides to abstain from alcohol. Rudeus and Paul meet again the next day. While the encounter begins awkwardly, Rudeus knows Paul misunderstood his intentions and is attempting to make amends. They reconcile after having a heart-to-heart. Despite the fact that Eris's family is still missing, Rudeus says that after escorting her home, he will continue looking for the rest of his family. Following their separation from Rudeus, Paul learns from Grease that he will continue the quest for the rest of Paul's family, visiting regions they haven't yet been to. Roxy returns to her home hamlet, where she reunites with her parents, while Rudeus and his company cross the sea to the central continent. Roxy considers leaving right away, still feeling displaced because she can't use telepathy to interact with her other villagers, but she reconsiders after learning how much her parents missed her. Roxy learns from her father and mother that Rudeus paid them a visit 2 years ago, and she travels with her companions to continue searching the demon continent for the rest of his family, relieved that he is safe. Rudeus meets up with the human god again, and receives instructions on how to reunite with Lilia and Ashia. Rudeus sends a letter to Roxy, who works as a teacher at the palace, and saves Ashia from some pursuers when they arrive in the kingdom of Chiron. Rudeus follows the human council gods and doesn't reveal his true identity to his sister. Rudeus is summoned to the palace for a meeting with Roxy, but he falls into a trap set by Chiron's 7th prince, Pax, who has Lilia kidnapped. Pax, enamored with Roxy, says that he plans to kidnap her using Rudeus as bait. Rudeus is visited in his cell by Chiron's 3rd prince, Zenoba, who idealizes him for his lifelike sculptures of Roxy and Reincarnated and wants to become his apprentice. When Rudeus explains that only Pax has the ability to break the seal on his cage, Zenoba agrees to help. Meanwhile, Pax's guards bring Reincarnated, Eris, and Aisha into the palace in exchange for the release of their families from Pax's clutches. Zenoba then kidnaps Pax, with Aisha explaining that Zenoba is a blessed child with extraordinary strength, who goes by the moniker of the Decapitator Prince. Pax is coerced into releasing Rudeus by Zenoba, while Pax's guards refuse to help after they learn that their families are safe. After that, Lilia and Aisha are sent home, and Lilia gives Rudeus a necklace Sylphie crafted for his 10th birthday, as well as Roxy's underwear. Rudeus then gives Aisha his forehead protection as a memento. Aisha apologizes to Rudeus for calling him a pervert as she walks away, indicating that she had known his true identity all along. Meanwhile, due to the incident, Pax and Zenoba are exiled from the Chiron Kingdom under the pretense of staying abroad. When Rudeus, Eris, and Reincarnated encounter Orsted, the dragon god, they continue their trip. Eris and Reincarnated are terrified and refuse to move, but Rudeus ignores their pleas and converses with him. Orsted questions Rudeus about the human god and attacks him, assuming Rudeus to be one of his apostles. Reincarnated and Eris try to protect Rudeus, but Orsted easily defeats them and kills Rudeus. Rudeus sees the human god as he dies, who tells that Orsted is cursed with multiple curses, one of which curses all living beings to dread him unreasonably. But Rudeus is unaffected. Despite not knowing the human god's true intentions, Rudeus thanks him for his assistance, but rather than dying, he returns to the world of living, where he learns that Orsted's companion, Nanahoshi, intervened on his behalf and convinced Orsted to save his life and spare him before the two left. Rudeus exposes the nature of the human god to Reincarnated during the night, as well as the information that the super curse on him is gradually melting away. The next day, the party arrives at Rudeus' hometown ruins, where he experiences flashbacks about his childhood. Reincarnated then states that he will go because Rudeus and Eris are powerful enough that they no longer require his protection. Rudeus and Eris say their goodbyes to Reincarnated before heading to Roa, which is likewise in ruins. Eris rejoins Ghislaine and her servant Alphonse there. Alphonse, on the other hand, says that Eris's parents were both slain in the teleportation episode, while her grandfather was put to death by the monarch. Alphonse also reveals that another branch of the Grey Rat family has offered Eris the opportunity to marry into them in order to continue the family line, despite Ghislaine's opposition. Rudeus subsequently learns that Sylphie was not found dead, but he still has no idea where she is. Eris enters Rudeus' tent that night and sleeps with him. The next morning, however, Rudeus discovers that Eris has gone to an unknown destination with Ghislaine, leaving him heartbroken and perplexed. Meanwhile, Eris had embarked on her own journey with Ghislaine, in order to strengthen herself so that she can fight Orsted and protect Rudeus. Despite disclosing his identity as a Supard to them, Reincarnated saves some travelers from animals, gaining their gratitude. Zenoba and Greece continue on their own travels. In Doldia village, Gaius and Tana continue to train together. Roxy runs across Kishirika and offers to help her pay off her massive bar tab. On return, Kishirika uses her demon eyes to track down Rudeus' family, discovering that Aisha and Lilia have been safely returned with Paul and Norn, while Zenith is in the Begarit continent's labyrinth city of Rapon. Roxy and her companions begin quickly making plans to travel through the Begarit continent. Rudeus is still depressed, but after having a dream about Zenith, he realizes that he still has a responsibility to locate her and overcomes his fears to continue on his trip. Sylphie is attempting to persuade an unknown group to accept Rudeus into their ranks, and that's the end of the video. As always, if you liked what you saw, subscribe to the channel. I'll be uploading a lot of videos just like this, so I'll see you in the next one.